if Victoria is loving this and reveling in this, it really comes down to her kind of being more like Lady Tremaine from Cinderella 2015.
The evil
right?
stepmother.
The evil stepmother, who looks good on the outside.
In this case, mother-in-law.
Absolutely, who looks good on the outside, but actually is secretly behind the scenes doing all kind of madness, right?
Yes.
Controlling everything,
yes.
making everyone, you know, focus on her beauty and her grace and her hosting abilities.
Rather than seeing what's going on in the background.
Rather than seeing the evil behind the scenes.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, welcome to the Cherry Jazmine Show. We are
Cherry B.
And I'm Xavia Jazmine. We are sister-in-laws and friends, and we talk about everything under the sun. And today we'd like to open up the discussion to you. So, what are we talking about today, Cherry B?
So, once again, unfortunately, we are just looking into the madness of the masses when it comes to the Beckhams. Essentially, for those of you who may not know, in fact, no, everybody knows. The Beckhams are feuding. Brooklyn came out, cast off his family, basically said that there were all kind of problems going on in the background and that he wants nothing to do with them. Now, we did 2 videos about this previously where we were kind of going into the depths of what he was talking about. We were analysing what he was talking about in terms of his the message that he put out. However, we were going to do a 3-part to that. However, there's been so much more information that has come out about the family and specifically come out to prove the point that what Brooklyn was saying was correct, right? About the way his family handles things, about what happened at his wedding. And even, you know, David's ex-side chick came out and basically said, yeah, this is kind of what David's like and what Victoria's like, right?
Yeah.
And not to say that we want to give the side chick any, you know, promotion, but it does say something about your character that you even have a side chick in the first place, or that you even had a side chick, right?
Or had multiple.
Or had multiple, because what she's claiming is that there was many of them. It wasn't just her, right?
She was one of many.
So here's the thing. We had a problem specifically with people who were taking the stance that either Brooklyn is just coming out and talking because he's a spoiled kid, or the fact that he's a kid in the first place, even though he's a 26-year-old grown man, right?
Yeah.
Or the fact that, and not to say that he's not young, but when you really think about historically what people were doing at 26,
including his own parents.
Including his parents. Like when you think about the fact that Victoria Beckham had him at 24 and she married David at 25, which is younger than Brooklyn is at 26, right? In fact, Victoria was around the world touring with the Spice Girls, way younger than Brooklyn. David was literally the captain of the football team, younger than Brooklyn. So my point is, you don't have to be an older person to make wise decisions, right? If you really think about what you're doing. And not to say that you're going to be the smartest person you're going to be at 26, but really, Brooklyn has done something honourable. He hasn't slept around. He hasn't gotten anyone pregnant outside of wedlock, which is what his parents did. He's married a woman and now he's making a choice to stand up for her because of the controlling tendencies that he claims that his parents have. So essentially, there's a guy called Fat Tony. He came out, I think his name is Fat Tony. Anyway, there's a DJ who came out and said he DJ'd the wedding. And he initially was trying to take the stance of not supporting them, right? However, or should I say not supporting one side or the other, because it seemed like he wanted to be neutral. But he actually just ended up confirming everything that Brooklyn said, right? And we'll put in a clip of that here.
You know, yes, I was the DJ at the wedding. It wasn't a 1-day wedding, it was a 3-day wedding. I did the welcome party, then I did the wedding, and then I did a brunch on the Sunday, which was the most awkward part of it all, because everything that had gone on the actual wedding night was discussed amongst all the guests the next morning. But why I said it was inappropriate as well was because at the time it was the timing. So what happened was, this is what happened, guys, right? So basically, Mark Anthony was performing on stage. He then called Brooklyn onto stage. Brooklyn went onto the stage where the next minute everyone was expecting it to be Nicola to go up and do the first dance. And then Mark Anthony asks the most beautifulest woman in the room to come to the stage. And then he says, Victoria, come to the stage. So Victoria's by the stage, she goes onto the stage. And of course, at that point, Brooklyn's like suddenly literally devastated because he thought he was going to do his first dance with his wife. Then Nicola leaves the room crying her eyes out. Brooklyn's stuck there on stage, and then they do this dance, and Mark Antony's like, "Go, put your hands on your mother's hips," and it was a Latin, it's a Latin thing, and the whole situation was really awkward for everyone in the room.
When it comes down to it, this man obviously was not trying to cause problems per se. He was just trying to say, now I doubt he's going to be hired back at any functions, but he was just trying to say that this is what happened.
Yeah.
He's telling his perspective, but the thing is, his perspective is the same as Tony's perspective.
Yep.
It's the same as the DJ's perspective, right? And
many other guests that have also now started speaking out at the wedding. So
100%.
he wasn't on his own.
100%. And so my thing is, there's clearly some kind of truth to what Brooklyn is saying. Also, there has been reports of people coming out saying that Victoria is loving this attention.
I'm told from my sources, which are really, really strong with the Spice Girls, that don't feel bad for Victoria. For a minute, I felt really bad for her. She's loving this. This has put her brand back on top. Everybody's talking about her. A couple of nights ago in London, what did she do? She went out for dinner with all the Spice Girls. It was Emma's birthday.
She did.
Victoria wasn't meant to go to that. I was told she'd RSVP'd. No, she doesn't.
No kidding.
She said, I'm going to put on a great dress and I'm going to go out and take a picture with my sisters, with the Spice Girls. Now there's even talk that this son, this Brooklyn attacking them might even push her into a reunion. What better way to distract the world from this, from your son saying awful things about you than doing a few shows? Remind everybody that you are a Spice Girl. Brooklyn Beckham is still going strong. In fact, if anything, they've had a surge. I'm told that Victoria's eyeliners, her clothes have gone through.
Her eyeliners are amazing. I love them.
My girlfriends have bought 3 extra ones just to show solidarity.
Because her sales have gone up, because it brings attention to the Brooklyn brand. And I have to say,
It's giving
narcissist. That's what it's giving. Like, if you're a genuinely loving, doting mother, this is not going to be something that you're reveling in. Now, obviously, this is only speculation because she hasn't actually said anything herself. But even in David Beckham's response, he was really kind of more patronizing and acting like his son is just having a childish moment, rather than dealing with the pressure of his family his whole life and telling the truth about what's going on, right? And so I just felt like it was important for us to say, and obviously you guys let us know what you think, right? But we have to stop looking at young people, and when I say young people, young adults, like they are children whenever they say something that's against what their parents are saying. As I have said in previous videos, it is extremely unusual for a child to come out, a grown child to come out and actively go against their parents in every way, and to say that they don't want anything to do with them. That is usually after years and years and years of trying and working through things. It's never normally that somebody just out of the blue says that there's a problem, right? And exposes everything to the world. When it comes down to it, we have to look at the fact that so many things that he said have come true or have been seen to be true by so many different people aside from himself. But also, when you really think about it, Brooklyn has lived his whole life under a pressurized bubble. As much as people are trying to say that he's a spoiled rich kid with no, self-esteem or self-respect or self-acknowledgement, or even, he's not grateful or whatever. If you've ever been a person who's grown up in the spotlight for any reason, right? And it doesn't even mean you're necessarily famous. It could just be that you have well-known parents in your community. You understand the pressure. In fact, if you're just an immigrant person, or in the West that has immigrant parents, you will know the pressure that they put over you to perform, right? To represent the family name. If you can imagine that times 1,000, because now your family is the Beckham brand and they are putting you on TV all the time. In fact, I will say this as well. Recent studies have shown that children who grow up with social media, for example, parents with that are YouTubers that put their children on social media, their children are damaged over time, because essentially what you're doing is you're causing the child to work from a young age. You're causing them to perform for views, for likes,
which
all
no
of these
one
things.
thinks about. They just think
Nobody
that they're
thinks
having
about.
fun. But as we've heard Fumi, I forget her last name, but as
Desalu Vold. Fumi Desalu Vold.
there we go. She was on the set of Ugly Betty, which Victoria appeared on, and she commented very clearly on how the boys were so well behaved.
I met Victoria Beckham in 2007, almost 20 years ago. I was working on Ugly Betty, and Victoria Beckham was invited onto the show. And she came on time. She also brought parts of her wardrobe. I'll never forget, she had these pair of sensational heels, encrusted. They were absolutely gorgeous. And she was there all day. She was quiet. She acted beautifully. And she was so very humble, very pleasant, no grandeur antics at all. What stood out for me was she came with her 3 young sons, the most well-behaved children ever. The most well-behaved, and I say that because they were so young. David came later on, he kissed his wife, and he was playing with the children. I'm going to say this to you, Victoria, because you had left, and everybody spoke about you and your family, how beautiful, how beautifully behaved and humble for such great superstars that you were, how very ordinary you were, and how wonderful your children were.
If you think about it, these are young boys who anyone who has lived with or raised young boys knows that they are full of beans, and usually it's very hard to keep them well behaved for hours. The amount that they would have been trained and pressured to be very
quiet,
well behaved,
to be well behaved.
And it's not to say that they didn't do a great job for actually being well behaved in the end, because we well know that, you know, you can train a child and they can still decide to rebel at any age. But the fact is that they were under a lot of pressure to be well behaved because they're Victoria Beckham's sons.
And these are small children we're talking about.
Right.
We're not talking about teenagers. We're talking about, I'm pretty sure Fumi was describing either toddlers or very young adolescents.
Sounded like they were
right?
all under 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my thing is, if you've got a toddler or, you know, a preschooler or even, you know, year 1, year 2, year 3, whatever it is, right? If you're any child under the age of 10, it takes an extreme amount of control for you to be able to sit down and be quiet and watch your mum do all this work. And I'm assuming Victoria had some kind of nanny, or even if she was managing them by herself. The fact is, that is a lot of pressure for your child to be under for hours at a time, because Victoria recording a shoot wasn't going to be a 5-minute situation. It would be like, if she's recording a scene in Ugly Betty, it would be over a period of hours. There has to be some part of what Brooklyn is saying is right. And it's not just because his wife is controlling. It's not just because he's a young man and he's spoiled. It maybe is because...
Old excuses.
It maybe is because he's just telling the truth. Maybe that's what it is.
Right.
And again, we're not trying to take sides. He could be wrong. He could be spoiled. All I'm saying is we need to look further than our own biases of what we think might be happening.
Absolutely.
And when it comes down to it, if Victoria is loving this and reveling in this, it really comes down to her kind of being more like Lady Tremaine from Cinderella 2015.
The evil
right?
stepmother.
The evil stepmother,
Yeah.
who looks good on the
In
outside.
this case, mother-in-law.
Absolutely, who looks good on the outside, but actually is secretly behind the scenes doing all kind of madness, right?
Yes.
Controlling everything,
Yes.
making everyone, you know, focus on her beauty and her grace and her hosting abilities.
Rather than seeing what's going on in the background.
Rather than seeing
Yeah.
the evil behind the scenes.
Right.
And so I'm not saying that Victoria is evil,
No.
but I'm saying that that is how she comes across. When
Yeah.
you are reveling in your success because of your son's sadness,
Like, all of this goes on with your son, you get knighted, and all you can focus on is discounting your eyeliners. As we said previously with David Beckham's statement, it didn't really help from I think most people's perspective, it didn't help to affirm him as this loving father who just wanted to reconcile with his son. It very much sounded like he was schooling him and just going, there, you know, childish person. Yeah, my poor childish...
There, child. Pat on the head.
Exactly. At least he tried to say, like, he gave a statement, number one, at all, and he at least acknowledged it. I think that
He at
speaks
least
volumes,
said something
because
rather than just
acknowledging
acting like
it,
it's not happening.
exactly. And you know what, I still think it was so sneaky and well played how even in his acknowledging his son's statement still managed to, you know, promote his own self in his act in UNICEF. But at least that's the way he did it. He bowed the two together, whereas Victoria is carrying on like this didn't even happen. Like, who's this person even saying these things about me? What? Who? And it's like, this is your son. You made such a big deal about your son at his wedding with only 500 guests to see what's going on, but now it's open to the public. You can't even put on an act and go, my poor son, I hope he feels better. And we obviously don't want you to lie, but we just find it fascinating how you're not choosing to say anything in public, which for some they would say that kills the rumors. But before it dies down, it says a lot about you, or at least gives a very clear impression of you.
100%.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, we have said a whole bunch, and there is a whole bunch to say. So please do let us know what you thought in the comments. Let us know what you think that we haven't said in the comments, because we want to know what you think. And we talk about everything under the sun, as we say every time. So please do like and subscribe so that you can follow the next thing that we talk about, and let us know if there's anything else that you want us to talk about, because we will get to it. And yeah, we will see you in the next one. Bye.